What you don't know can hurt you. HireItDone.com.
Hey, it's Adam Helfman from Hire It Done. If you're thinking about saving energy in your home, you might want to consider an energy audit. But remember, not all energy audits are created equal. Today, we're going to give you a step-by-step instruction on how to know if you've got the right energy audit.
So an energy audit, the word audit is used pretty vaguely in our industry. People call it energy audits or assessments or home performance reviews. But in the end, it's understanding that the house works as a system and we use different diagnostics tools to identify those performance issues as it relates to comfort, efficiency, and health and safety. So during these audits or home performance assessments, we have many different tools that we use to identify those performance issues. Items such as a bore scope, fire combustion analyzers, blower door testing, manometers, infrared thermography, and simple things like ladders and flashlight are used throughout the process. So it's important to understand what a house looks like before a blower door test is conducted with an infrared camera. Now this reads surface temperatures so we can see where air is moving behind the walls. So if we can take an image before we run the blower door and then we re-inspect after, we'll see variances in color, basically temperature change, where there's air movement. So infrared reads surface temperature. So outside today is cold, it's about 30 degrees. And inside is warm, it's about 70 degrees. So when we look at the screen here, we're looking for hot and cold spots in the walls, ceilings, and floors. So you can see around the heat register, there's a cold spot. Most likely, whoever installed this heat register moved the insulation back and never put it back in place. Right here, you can see a very large cold spot in the ceiling. So when we do our visual inspection and actually physically get up in the attic, we will look for this spot and see what the potential culprit is. So what this blower door is going to do is it's going to simulate roughly a 15-mile-an-hour wind. So it's not tornado conditions, these are just wind pressures you experience all day, every day, but we're going to consider pressure on the whole house and not just a windwardly side. Now, we're actually reversing the natural process. Warm air wants to go where it's cold. So inside's warm, outside's cold. Warm air wants to escape out of it. What we're going to do is reverse that process, pull outside air in, so that we can go around and with a smoke pencil, see where the drafts are. So one typical spot for air infiltration or exfiltration is these whole house fans. Pretty common to see. And you can see the smoke shooting back down on us. There is quite a bit of air leakage through this shutter. So warm is escaping out of the house through this major bypass in the ceiling line. Here's another typical area. We have air coming into the home through a receptacle switch that's on an interior wall. So the question is, well, if this is an interior wall, where is the outside air coming in from? And it's coming from the attic. Air is flowing down this wall and coming out through this receptacle. Now here's a typical point of air leakage is the attic access. Now this is a tri-level home, so there is an attic behind this wall, and you can see that the panel has quite a bit of draft leaking around it. Here is another point, another attic access, where it's just plywood sitting on the trim work. Now the attic is outside. The attic should be within 10 degrees of the outside. So any access to the outside should be weather stripped and insulated properly. Much like our doors and windows are to keep the outside out and the inside in, these hatches need to be addressed to stop this communication between the attic and the house. So this is a typical fireplace. It's a wood burning fireplace with a natural chimney. And what happens here is even though there's a cast iron damper inside there that is closed, it's just metal on metal. So air is going to flow from the house up through the chimney and out of the home, which ultimately will make this family room very cold. So the next step after running a blower door is running an infrared scan on the home. And infrared thermography is basically taking surface temperatures of the house of different assemblies. So since the outside is cold and the inside is warm, When we look at a wall, we don't want to see any blue spots in the walls. Wherever there's blue spots, or the darker the color, the cooler the surface temperature is. Now you can see very easily where the studs or the framing members are in the walls, and you can see in between each stud is nice and bright and yellow. This shows me that the walls are insulated. When we ran the blower door, we found that this light switch had a lot of air movement through it. And as you can see with the infrared camera, you can see the source of the air is coming from the attic, and it's running down the wall and coming out through this outlet. So the limitation to a blower door is that the blower door will only pick up where there's air actually coming into the home. If that outlet wasn't there and it was just solid drywall, we wouldn't have never known that there was air movement through there. So what's important is that we take an infrared camera after we run the blower door and we scan the walls and start looking for where there's air moving behind the scenes. Another spot where there is no insulation. Obviously this whole house fan, they wouldn't put insulation on top of it because there's a spinning fan above this. But it's a very, very cold spot that now is allowing heat to transfer through. Here's another spot, the attic access, where when we ran the blower door, we've seen air leakage from the trim work in the plywood panel that's sitting on top of it. And another attic access hatch that is not insulated and is not sealed to where we have air leakage around it. So this is a typical area in kitchens that we find. We refer to this little boxed section in the ceiling as a drop ceiling. And from inside the attic, this ceiling line is hollow. And you can see with the infrared that the whole surface temperature is cold because it's improperly insulated. The next important part of an energy audit is doing what's called CAS testing, combustion appliance zone testing. And essentially what we're trying to do is to determine the efficiencies, the draft, how much carbon monoxide is being generated from a furnace, water tank, boiler. We do this with different diagnostics tools like a Fyrite, a combustion analyzer, which is going to measure the carbon monoxide, how well the unit is drafting, and temperatures. We want the unit to work at its optimum peak to utilize the gas that's going through it. So the next very important step is to physically get up in the attics, in the crawl spaces, and visually inspect and identify those performance issues that we've identified running the blower door and running the infrared camera. If an auditor doesn't actually get up in the attic, that should be a red flag to you. It's very important that they're visually seeing these problems and making notes and taking pictures of those issues. During my visual inspection, I'm looking for issues such as missing insulation, thin insulation, the type of insulation. We're looking for attic ventilation. We're looking for any type of biogrowth on the roof decking, any roof rot. We're looking at our mechanical systems, if there is any in the attics, and how they're communicating to the house. And most importantly, we're looking for the penetrations that are allowing the warm air from the house to communicate in the attic. These things can contribute to ice damming issues, indoor air quality issues, temperature differences, excessive dust in the home. So we're trying to find these penetrations that we identified with the blower door and infrared. Based upon what I'm seeing, the attic is under insulated. At today's energy standards, we would want to increase the insulation value. Their bathroom exhaust fans the bathroom exhaust ducts are not insulated. So condensation can form much like a can of pop on a hot day. So the ducts need to be insulated properly. Now, their air conditioner is up in this attic space as well. And just by visually inspecting, I can see all the connection points are leaking and dumping conditioned air into the attic space. When the furnace isn't running, you also get communication from the attic into the duct system, and which will contribute to indoor air quality issues. So in this attic space, we can see that there is staining or moisture stains on the roof rafters and roof decking. This could be an indication of a roof leak, or it could be excessive heat buildup causing moisture to condense on the cold surface in the winter months. Either way, we need to identify the root source of this problem, because if it continues, We could have potential roof rot or mold issues. Just as important as getting into the attic space to inspect, we need to get into crawl spaces if there is one in the home. In crawl spaces, we're looking for potential moisture issues, potential mold issues. We want to look at the insulation strategy, whether it's on the floor or if it's on the walls. We want to look for air infiltration points. Obviously, critters are always a factor. And we also want to look at the ground, and is there exposed dirt in the crawl space that could eventually allow moisture to wick up into the home. So the tests that were done today are the major tests that are typically done during an energy audit. There's other tests that can and should be done depending on the conditions of the house, such as moisture reading testing, zone pressure testing, combustion testing, carbon monoxide gas leakage detecting. So there is other things depending on the conditions of the house that should be done. Keep in mind, homeowners, you should expect anywhere from 2 to 4 hours for an energy audit, and that will vary depending on the size of the house and the issues or the symptoms you're experiencing. Also, we would encourage you to participate in this audit. Please ask questions as we go through the house, because again, there's quite a bit that we're going through and there's a lot of issues that we identify. So it's important that we address those questions right away so that it's clear to everybody as to the problem.
What you don't know can hurt you. HireItDone.com